Hey fresties, welcome back to Wattpad Wednesdays. Today is going to be a very casual video, sort of different than you're used to seeing from me. I got a request about my own Wattpad journey to talk a little bit about myself and how I came to be on Wattpad, all that good stuff. Yeah, I was really happy to get this request, so thank you so much to the requester. It sort of made me realize that I really haven't shared that much of my own Wattpad experience with you guys. I haven't really shared that much about myself in general. So hopefully this video will help you get to know me a little bit better if that's what you're interested in. If not, you know, thanks for clicking. Probably goodbye. I have a feeling this video might be sort of long, it might be sort of rambly, but hopefully it'll just be a nice, enjoyable little chit chat, and it'll be an interesting video for you guys to see how far I have come over the past 10 years. Not solely on Wattpad, but we'll get to that in a second. So I would say that my Wattpad journey actually started before I ever got a Wattpad account. And don't worry, I'm not about to go into a whole spiel about like on December 19th, 1998, I was born. We're not going that far back, but we are going back to when I was 11 or 12? I was 12 and I was on the internet one day, I was on YouTube and I came across a video, and this video was Gotta Be You by One Direction. Life-changing experience, may I add, and it is still to this day my favorite One Direction song. Maybe for nostalgic reasons, but anyways, I'm getting sidetracked. Basically, what happened, I found One Direction, and as I'm sure many of you experienced, I went down the rabbit hole of One Direction fanfiction. And at the time, this was late 2011? Yeah, late 2011. At the time, the main places that One Direction fanfiction existed that I could tell was on Facebook and on a website called Quizazz. So I joined Quizazz, I made an account, and I just binge read so much One Direction fanfiction. And see, I do sort of take issue with real person fanfiction nowadays, just because I think it's like sort of an invasion of somebody's actual life. But at the time, I mean, I was 12, so I'm not gonna hound on myself for it. And I was just like, this is like reading a book, but I get to read about people who I really care about, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. And then it just sort of clicked with me. I was like, I could do this too? Like, I could take all the daydreams and scenarios that I have in my head and just put them on paper, or rather online. So I started writing on Quizazz myself, which eventually turned into Quote V somewhere around like when I was in 8th grade. It wasn't fan fiction that I was writing, it was self-insert fiction for sure. There was always a character that was based on me. Even if she wasn't the main character, she was usually the side character, because I always wanted to be the side character whose life was a little tumultuous, but not that tumultuous. The main character has it rough. The side characters, they got it easy. Still to this day, I love side characters. And you will see, if you do read my writing, I include like a side character romance in almost all of my books, because it's a thing that I did back then, and it's a thing that I'm still doing now. I love it. I no longer self-insert though. I'd save that for my own time. Nobody else needs to see that. I stayed writing on Quote V for many years. I would say it was freshman year, so like around 2014, when Quote V kind of just started to die, to be honest. And it was really sad for me, because that was an integral part of my tween and early teen years. It was my home. I was addicted to that website. And so seeing it lose a lot of its popularity was really sad for me, but there was a place for me to go, and that was Wattpad. Again, this was like mid 2014, and at that time, Wattpad was, as far as I could tell, and I'm pretty sure this is accurate, the biggest platform for sharing your writing online. So I officially made my first ever Wattpad account on May 28th, 2014. So it has been 7 years, almost like coming up on 8 now, but not really that close to 8. I don't know why in my first video that I made on here, I said that I was on Wattpad for 8 years, because I have not been. I guess I'm just really that bad at math. But yeah, where Quote V was my safe haven during middle school, Wattpad was my safe haven during high school. Writing on there really helped me deal with a lot of the teenage angst that I felt during those years, and it just gave me a place to express myself and just write and get these daydreams out of my head and not worry about making it perfect. Or at that point, I really was not focused on trying to build an audience. I was just writing, and if people wanted to read it, then that was great. But really, it was just for me. Like, my stories were purely for myself and my own enjoyment, which was sort of a change from middle school, because when I was writing on Quote V, I actually was doing it with friends most of the time. We would read each other's stories and help each other out with our stories, and that was super fun. And we would write, you know, for the enjoyment of each other, and we would include each other in our stories and stuff. So that was so fun. But my friends didn't really seem to carry that interest with them to high school. I was sort of on my own with writing once we all got to high school, and I just wasn't ready to let it go yet. So it was sort of a thing that became just for me. The stories that I wrote pretty much always had little to no plot. They were very heavily character-based and very focused on inner turmoil rather than like anything happening externally to the characters. And of course, in most of these stories, I was still self-inserting. And this is gonna be a little side note, but I feel like there is a very bad reputation for writing self-inserts. And obviously, if you are trying to write legitimately and you're trying to get a book published, then yeah, writing a self-insert in your book, probably not the best idea, and your character is probably not going to turn out so interesting because you're just writing like wish fulfillment for yourself. But as a teenager in high school who was really going through it and just needed to pretend like I was in this other world and had these friends and these experiences going on in my life, like it was all that I needed to do. And I think that self-insert writing can really just be fun. It can just be a good outlet for you. And I don't think that it deserves as negative of a reputation as it has. I still write self-insert stuff. Like, not to expose myself, but I do. I just do it for myself, and I keep it private for myself because at the end of the day, that's who it's for. I'm not doing it to try to appeal to any other audience. Although there was a little secret fan fiction. We'll talk about it. Yeah, the most important story to myself that I wrote when I was in high school was a story called Monsters. It just dealt with this group of teenagers who had a lot to deal with at school. They had a lot of angst. They had a lot of feelings within the group, and this story is still so close to my heart just because reading it really transports me back to when I was in high school and when I was feeling all these things that I just had to get out into some sort of format. That's another reason why I love the fact that I wrote, because it's like looking back at my old diaries but in a completely different way. And I am still in love with this story, and I actually tried to bring it back in like probably early to mid 2018 on my new account, and I retitled it as The Blanks. But like I said, my stories back then did not have much plot at all, and even though I tried to revive the story and sort of fix that issue, it was just still so lacking in plot and direction. So maybe one day I will revisit these characters and these situations because I really do love these characters, but at the same time, it's something that seems sort of sacred to that specific area of my life, that specific time in my life. So, you know, we'll see. But yeah, that story it meant the world to me. It was everything. And I think that the amount of reads it got was somewhere around 200, I want to say, and it had no consistent readers. It got maybe like 4 comments in its history of existing. I never finished it, by the way, because like I said, it had no direction. It was just me writing about characters and the stuff that they had to deal with from a day-to-day basis. It didn't go anywhere, we'll just say that, but it meant a lot to me. Then in 2016, I took sort of a detour from Wattpad and I started writing on Tumblr. The reason for this was because what I was writing were reader insert imagines. This started off with Harry Potter characters, and then later I also branched out into The 100 because I was obsessed with that show at the time. And I actually gained like a very decent following on Tumblr. If you want to write imagines and stuff like that, Tumblr is a great place to do it. You will get so much feedback, you will get so many requests, it's kind of crazy. And what I did was that I also posted these on my Wattpad account as well, and they actually ended up doing pretty well on Wattpad. This is on my old account. As of right now, they are both sitting at a little over 100k each, so yeah. They did pretty good, especially since they didn't really have that many parts. I didn't really do this for that long. But during this time, I realized that ow! I just banged my hand against my knee and it hurt. During this time, I realized that I freaking loved writing fanfiction. Can I get a comb?
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
And I wanted to delve into the realm of a legitimate, 100% indulgent self-insert fanfiction with my favorite character. So I created another Wattpad account. Basically, I pretended to be this whole other human being, and I just wrote a totally self-indulgent self-insert fanfiction with my favorite character of all time from Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Cameron Fry. Sort of an embarrassing thing to admit, but like I said before, I don't think that there is shame in self-insert fanfictions. I just don't. Like, if you're having a good time, you're having a good time. You do you. Also, it does not exist anymore on the internet. Otherwise, I probably would not admit to this because I wouldn't want anybody to read it now. But at the time, pretending to be somebody else and just using my name in the fanfiction and like my personality and issues and everything, it was cool. Now, since this was a self-insert fanfiction, this was like totally just for me. I was not expecting it to get anywhere really, but it did really surprisingly well. I think the reason for this is because it was in a popular niche, but one that didn't have many other people writing in it. I was getting suddenly thousands of reads, which I had never even broken like 500 reads before. And I was getting a bunch of supportive comments, people saying that they really loved my writing style and that I was just doing like a totally justified fan fiction for my favorite piece of media ever. And it was just like the best sort of compliments that I could ever hope for. And it made me realize that I wanted to try to write a story that actually was not just for me, but would also appeal to other people and really be meaningful to other people as well. So this was in like the fall of 2017. It was like right after I graduated high school when I realized like, yeah, I want to make my own original characters again, and I want to make a plot, like an actual story for the first time ever. So it was at this point that I made my third Wattpad account, which is the one that I still use to this day. When I made it, I had a different username. It was Destruction, but with like an X replacing one of the vowels. I don't even remember which one, but it was based off the lyric from one of my favorite bands, the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Destruction leads to a very rough road, but it also breeds creation. And that is one of my favorite lyrics ever. That's why I chose that username. But now it is Caitlin with 2 L's instead of an I, because that was obviously taken, but in all caps it looks right, so I was happy. So before I delved right into writing my new project, I actually, for the first time ever pretty much, outside of English class in school, I did a little bit of research into story structure. I will just go ahead and say that I was also still working on the fan fiction at this time, but eventually, and I mentioned this in a previous video when I talked about hate comments, like, so this was a self-insert fanfiction. The girl character, the main female character, was based on me. So when she started to get a bunch of hate comments calling her like
expletives
and just completely obliterating her for her character flaws that were based on me, may I add, it was a little uncomfortable, and I was just like, yeah, I think it's time to take this down. I felt very upset because there were so many people who enjoyed it, but it was just time to let it go. So I did end up unpublishing that later on. So this account still exists, but the story is no more and shall never be released again to the public. It sucks enough when you get comments that are hating on your original characters that maybe you have nothing in common with anyways, but when it is comments that are obscenely rude to a character that you have based on yourself, that sucks. So if you are gonna do self-insert fanfiction, maybe do keep it to yourself, just because sometimes people can be harsh, especially I think in fanfiction communities, because like I said before, sorry, I know this is a tangent, but I think when people read fanfiction, they can get a little possessive over their favorite characters. So they are more inclined to leave harsh comments about the romantic interest that their character has, even though it's like, obviously they need to have flaws. If they were a perfect Mary Sue, then you would hate them as well. So Anyways, I digress severely. Back to my Wattpad journey. I wrote and posted about 10 chapters of my first ever book, Four of Clubs, on my new account, but the story was not getting very many readers or comments in comparison to the fan fiction that I was still posting at this time. So I sort of just left it up, but abandoned it for, I would say, like 2 months or so. When I came back to it though, and I logged into that account again, there was a comment on the last chapter that I had posted at Four of Clubs, and I wish that I still had this comment. I wish I took a screenshot of it. I probably do have it on my old phone or something. It was just a comment that was encouraging me to keep updating because they wanted to know what was going to happen next. And this single comment was what inspired me to start working on Four of Clubs again. Without that comment, I may have just totally stopped writing that story, and who knows where my writing journey would have gone at that point. Like, I honestly couldn't say, but thankfully I did get this comment and I did continue writing it, and I ended up finishing it in, I think, August of 2018. And at that point, I started another story. This was called May the Best Candidate Win, which is now on my profile as May the Best Ex Win. And I also started to write a novella called Opposite Day. There were also a few stories during this time period that I started writing, but they just did not pan out. So I ended up unpublishing these or putting them on hold and then deleting them later. You know, this was the revamp of monsters called The Blanks. There was one called Brandon Bowers and the Preppy Project. I remember that one. There was a romance one that I wanted to do, but I never even finished writing the first chapter, but it was an idea that I had, and I for some reason published the teaser for it even though I didn't write anything yet. Those are the main 3 that I can think of that I started and then just took them away. But despite all of that, things were going really, really well for me, and I had fallen in love with writing all over again, basically. It felt like it did when I was in middle school. Like, there's this whole world out there that I can just create every day. Anyway, after I finished writing May the Best Ex Win and Opposite Day, I started doing some more studies of story structure and storytelling and different methods for planning stories, all that good stuff, and I came up with the idea for my 3rd book, Oliver Ausman Lives Again. At this point, all these stories that I had done were very lighthearted teen fiction stories, and not to say that I didn't love doing those, but my goal with Oliver Ausman Lives Again was to write a really meaningful story that was moving and would produce more emotions than the ones that I had written in the past, like a bit of a deeper tale. I started writing it in March of 2019, and then a few months after this, I actually got a job. Basically, my life just went berserker. It was not a fun time for me. I was in a bad mood all the time. I hated my job. I hated my life. I was in a bad place. And then Oliver, my main character, was also in a bad place. So I was in a bad place in my real life, and then I had to put myself in a bad place for his life as well. Yeah, it was not the escapism that I needed at that particular time. So I sort of took a break from writing and just, I didn't even have any motivation to work on anything. I was just desolate in my brain. There was nothing going on up there other than wow, this sucks. I eventually worked up the courage to quit this job because I was just absolutely miserable, and I quit right before the virus hit, basically. And since I lived at home, and I still do live at home, I was able to just... Sorry, I took off my socks. It's kind of hot in here. You didn't need to know that. I just figured that you probably could tell I was doing something. But yeah, thanks to my parents being generous and not, kicking me out the moment that I turned 18 and whatnot, or disliking the fact that I got unemployed, I was able to just use this time to really focus on my writing, especially because since the virus had hit, it wasn't exactly the time to be looking for a new job. Let's just put it that way. So I took advantage of the situation, if you could say that there is a way to take advantage of the situation that we were all in, and I just really focused on my writing for 2019 to now, basically. I was able to make some money online by selling things on Poshmark and Mercari and all that stuff, and also doing cover commissions for some people on Wattpad, which was a lot of fun. I might do that again someday, I don't know. I might want to turn that into a video series, not for money, but just for free, where like you guys can enter your stories and then I'll randomly pick one every month to like make you a cover for. If you would be interested in that, let me know if you're watching this, because I think that could be a lot of fun. Basically, because of the experience I had with my previous job, I knew at this point, I was like, I want writing to be my career. Like if I do not have this as a job someday, then like I don't know what else I'm gonna do, because there's nothing else that I want to do. So in April 2020, I got invited to be a part of the Wattpad Stars program. This meant a lot to me because it was just confirmation that like, okay, I am doing the right thing. Like I am on the right path. This actually could be something more than just a hobby, maybe. And the funny thing about this is that when I was submitting my application for the Stars program months before, my laptop died like 5 minutes after I sent the application in. So if I had just been a little bit slower, or my laptop had been a little bit quicker in going kapooey, that application never would have got sent in, and I may never have gotten that extra boost of confidence that I needed from this offer. At this point, I had finished writing Oliver Ausman Lives Again, and it was on to my next book, which was The Art of Being Alone Together. And at this point, I was trying out yet another method for planning my stories and just really getting in depth into the characters and their flaws. I was just still really learning about what it meant to tell a story and make it meaningful, you know? In August, oh, that says September. My writing is really not so great. My handwriting, my writing is fine. Don't take that as a reason to not check out my writing on Wattpad. Self-promo. In August and September of 2020, May the Best X Win got featured on the editor's pick list on the front page of Wattpad. So that was like a huge freaking boost for me, my account, and that story, and all of my other stories. I got over 100,000 reads from being featured on this list. So yeah, huge. Once I finished writing The Art of Being Alone Together, which I like that story, but I just like writing that is such a blur for me. Like I barely remember writing that story. It was just like, sometimes when I'm like thinking of how many books I've written or like talking to people about my books, I just completely forget that that one even exists. And then I feel bad because I like that story, but it's just like, it's my forgotten child, basically. After I finished writing Taubat, as I like to call it because it's a very long title, I started working on my most difficult story yet, which also has a very long title, How to Save Your School from Soul-Stealing Demons. I also took the opportunity to submit all of my eligible stories into the 2020 Watties, and lo and behold, Oliver Ausman Lives Again won a Watty award. I still can't believe it. It was one of the awards for new adult. So this was another huge boost for me in not only my reads and my numbers, but also just in my confidence. It felt like I was being recognized and like maybe I actually was okay at this, you know? Maybe this is actually a possibility for me to explore this as a career option, and it's not something that is so out of the box. For Christmas of 2020, my wonderful, amazing sister, she got me Save the Cat Writes a Novel for Christmas, and that book, like, I wanted that book, but I didn't realize that I needed that book. So I read it again and again, I highlighted, I studied it, and I used it to just better my plans for How to Save Your School from Soul-Stealing Demons. It just has amplified me as a writer more than I can even express. Like, I don't know if it would work that way for everybody, but for me, it was just exactly what I needed. It was exactly the type of direction and instruction that I was looking for when it came to studying storytelling. After I finished writing How to Save Your School from Soul-Stealing Demons, though, I felt a little lost. So I started doing some researching on self-publishing, and I actually signed up for Sarah Cannon or Heart Breathing's Publish and Thrive course, which fabulous. I will be coming back to that in the future when I do plan to self-publish, because wow, there's so much information in there. But the reason why I am not looking into self-publishing at the particular moment, why did I say particular? At the moment, is because during this time while I was taking the course, Wattpad reached out to me and offered me Wattpad exclusivity, which was just freaking crazy. So I am exclusive to Wattpad at the moment, and that is basically where I'm at right now. That is sort of my Wattpad journey. At this point in time, I'm just continuing to write on Wattpad. I'm working on branching out into a new genre, you know, exploring different possibilities in the realm of writing. And I am looking into someday possibly being an entrepreneur and self-publishing my works and everything that that entails, which is a big journey. And also I am continuing my YouTube journey with you guys, the Fresties. So that is really exciting as well. And I never would have done this, I don't think, without my Wattpad journey, because I wanted to be a YouTuber basically as long as I've wanted to be a writer, since I was like 11 or 12, but I never had anything to talk about before. It occurred to me earlier this year, you know, hey, I know a decent amount about Wattpad. I've wanted to do YouTube for so long, and I could probably help some people with all the things that I struggled with when I was starting out on Wattpad and trying to get more reads and whatnot. I didn't touch so much on, you know, how I did read for reads and how I self-advertised in the forums and all that stuff, because I don't know, it's just not very it's not a very important part of the story, I felt, but I did do all of that. And I feel like you guys probably already knew that because I have shared that in my other tip videos before. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here and be able to give advice that could help you guys and make you feel like there is an audience out there for you on Wattpad. It's just a matter of working to find them. But yeah, that's my Wattpad journey and a little of my YouTube journey. I hope that this video was entertaining. I hope that you learned a little bit more about me, and maybe I don't feel like such a stranger now, just some random person, you know, chilling out advice for you. Yeah, I hope to do some more videos where you could get to know me a little better and my writing process and all that good stuff, like an AuthorTube tag. Very interested in doing that. It's just a matter of getting the time to film it and edit it and all that stuff. I am very focused on my writing right now, especially since we are just a few days away from National Novel Writing Month, so yeah. So yeah, I'm rambling now, but thank you guys so much for watching. Yeah, let me know in the comments how long you guys have been on Wattpad, and yeah, for me it's 7 years, not 8. Don't know why I said that again. That's everything, and I hope that I will see you in the next Wattpad Wednesday video. It's been a while since you guys have seen him up close and personal. Oh, why is he pointing like that? Oh my gosh, I think he's threatening you.